By picturing invention Archimedes style, we play into the lone genius model we mentioned in our last video. We imagine lone geniuses sitting in a study somewhere, pondering the universe without any kind of input from anyone else, until a brilliant idea strikes them. It seems passive, like ideas just happen to you. I prefer the Jack London quote, "You can't wait for inspiration. You have to go after it with a club." Invention techniques are all the active things we do to go after ideas and make connections. Remember, invention is a skill, so we can practice it and improve over time. Invention is both systematic and recursive, qualities which impact how we practice it. It's less complicated than it sounds. Systematic simply means here that we can figure out specific steps that will, pretty reliably, generate a few good ideas. Recursive refers to things that repeat over and over. Invention is technically the first step in the writing process, but sometimes our best ideas come out later, during steps like planning or drafting or revising. So we have to constantly come back to invention. Remembering these qualities of invention can help us keep moving in our writing, not waiting until we get to the perfect idea. Expecting divine inspiration can sometimes create what we know as writer's block. Occasionally, when you sit down to write a paper or progress report, or even a text to your crush, you'll come up with something pretty quickly. But plenty of other times, you'll feel like you're blocked. But this isn't a super helpful way to imagine it. If you're blocked, you can't move forward because outside forces are stopping you. In reality, we are the ones who decide to stay behind the block. Writer's block is more likely if we sit with our computer or notebook and wait for ideas to come to us. Imagine instead that we have to go exploring for ideas to get where we want to go. Let's discuss 3 useful techniques: free writing, list making, and affinity diagrams. First, free writing. Free writing is a strategy popularized by English professor and philosopher Peter Elbow. He wanted writers to be able to get started on projects without getting stuck on worries about the final draft or fears that it wouldn't come out perfectly the first time. The idea of free writing is pretty simple. Take a blank page or a new computer document and put your topic, issue, or question at the top. Don't worry about expressing it perfectly. Just jot down the core thing that you're supposed to write about. Then give yourself a time limit, say 3 minutes, and write without stopping for that whole time. I mean it when I say without stopping. This means you can write things like, "I sure love chocolate," as long as you keep writing and trying to get back to your topic. This nonstop writing might sound silly, but it gets you to let go of all of your judgments about your writing and just do the thing. Even if you don't have a eureka moment during free writing, you can sometimes use 1 or 2 useful things you've written. Sometimes your free write won't result in any concrete ideas, but the questions it raises can help you see what you need to reread or what resources you need to look up in order to know what to do next. You aren't doing it wrong if the first round doesn't give much that you can immediately use. The goal is to get started. Another technique that also helps with idea generation is list making. List making shares a lot with free writing, but uses a different way of associating ideas. Start by listing each main topic or concept that needs to be covered and leave space beneath each one. Then set a time limit for yourself and try to fill in all the details, examples, or facts that are relevant to each topic. Don't worry about complete sentences or thoughts. Just write ideas as fast as you can, until the time runs out or you can't think of anything else. This technique gives you more ideas than you can use. Having a whole list of ideas lets you pick the best ones, not just the first ideas you come up with. Making lists also lets our brains do something called associative thinking, which is coming up with the next stepping stone of thought based on what we were originally thinking about. We do this with shopping lists. You might think of the eggs and the milk that you're out of, and that makes you remember that you have to make brownies this week, and so you add fudge to the list. Chocolate. Each item that you add to your list can remind you of other things that might be relevant. Each piece of information can help you make new connections. Creating lists can be useful in lots of ways. Once you have a main idea for your writing project, for instance, you can use lists to think of a bunch of relevant supporting ideas. These kinds of lists lead well into our last technique. Affinity diagrams are a really helpful way to view your ideas as fundamentally connected. It's even more associative thinking. Affinity diagrams can be done on a paper or chalkboard, but a nice way to work with them is to use sticky notes. Write your core ideas on individual notes, then give yourself a target number of other details and concepts, or a target time to brainstorm ideas. Then arrange the ideas you've come up with, hopefully more than you need, on a flat surface, like a wall or a door. You can organize them based on which concepts are most important, or which ones are dependent on others. Try out different ways of organizing them. You also might put all the sticky notes that relate to each other into different areas of the wall, thinking about what makes one idea fit well in one place and not in another. Affinity diagrams generate more ideas, but their big benefit is giving you initial connections between ideas that can make later writing steps, like planning, easier. For an example of how you can combine some techniques in order to thoroughly explore ideas, let's watch a writer in action. Lola has to write a literature review for her public policy class, comparing studies of the relationship between tax rates and benefits offered by different governments. She has learned a series of techniques that help her approach invention enthusiastically, so she doesn't just sit and wait for ideas to come to her. She applies her strategy in 3 steps. First, she rereads her favorite resource from class during this unit with a notepad beside her, so when she notices connections she wants to mention in the paper, she can write them down. After she reads, she does a 3-minute free write, expanding on the notes she took. When she rereads her free write, she realizes she's focused a lot on healthcare as a benefit. She then tries to write a 10-item list of examples and details relating taxes to healthcare, since her long-term process has her use a 10-item list to generate ideas. From those 10, 6 seem interesting, but she only finds studies relating to 4 of them, so she focuses on those during the next step. Finally, she draws an affinity diagram, arranging sticky notes into categories for each example.